All right, welcome to the first ever Sell That SaaS podcast. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I have a special guest with me today. His name is Tom Slocum. Tom is not only a friend, he's a father, he is a husband, he is the founder of the SD Lab. He's got over 25,000 followers on LinkedIn, been in the software sales space for a long time. I got introduced to Tom through a friend of mine you guys might know named Morgan Ingram. So the tech sales creator space is definitely smaller than you might think. So Tom, thanks for being my first guest. I'm like super stoked to have you here. I'll turn it over to you to do a quick intro and, just excited to have you here.
I'm excited to be here, man. This is such a, as you all see, such a great experience here, great studio you got going on. And when you hit me up, I was like, of course, man. What better way to kick off the series? But yeah, as you mentioned, right, Tom Slocum, been in sales since 2007, so 16 years now, and husband, father, got a 12-year-old, 6-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son. And now, yeah, running my own company, man. It's been incredible. We're in month 13 now, so over a year. Now looking into year 2, got a little bit of a squad coming in. And yeah, man, it's just been a journey, dude. And to connect with you through Morgan and be here, I couldn't be more honored, man. So thank you.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know, Tom and I are both based in Scottsdale. So yeah, that's where the podcast is really going to kick it off, is in the Phoenix, Scottsdale area. So Tom and I were just talking earlier, there's not too many of us in the Scottsdale area. And when I got introduced to Tom, I was like, dude, what a perfect opportunity to have you as my first guest. And then I got this awesome studio here. I'm renting it from a good friend of mine, Zeke. So
shout out Zeke.
If
you're in Phoenix, you got to hit this dude up. Great little studio.
Seriously. So just incredible that I'm doing my first podcast. I've been doing content for so long.
Yeah.
And it just seems like almost 2 years of like full-time video work, that the one missing piece I had was a podcast. Right. And, today, like the goal of the Sell That SaaS podcast is to deliver value to the listeners, especially in the software sales space specifically. And that's kind of where you and I run. And, I brought Tom on here because he's got a lot of experience, and also he's a entrepreneur. He's actually in the business. So he helps SDRs, he helps AEs. And I'd love to learn more about that. Really, the topic of today's podcast is the AE BDR relationship, how crucial it is to be successful in software sales if you don't have that relationship right. And we'll kind of riff and kind of go into some other tactics you guys can listen in on, cold call tactics, how important the phone is in your sales outreach, LinkedIn in-mails. We'll talk all that today. But, Tom, I just wanted to kind of learn more about you as a business owner, your past experience, and kind of what you're up to now and how you help SDRs and AEs.
Yeah. So like I said, right, started in 2007 in the financial services, moved through a couple organizations, and then like 2015, 2016, I really fell in love with top of the funnel. Sales, SDRing. I was a full sales cycle AE, not knowing what an SDR or an AE kind of break apart was. It was just, you just ran your business and worked for a company. And then I found this SDR chunk and I was like, oh, this is it. Just book some meetings. Like, cool, I'm all in. And then last year, after a couple runs of scaling a couple teams out, being a VP of sales with Trainio, I was like, hey, why not, go this route? So with the friends and the community, we dove into the SD Lab, launched it last year, September 2022. And it's been wild, to sit here and say that I've been blessed enough and fortunate enough to make it 13 months. As you and I know, the space has been kind of volatile. It's been a little aggressive. It's been kind of doom and gloom for most people. But you have those little slivers in there of those folks that are just, hustling, not taking that as an excuse, and they're grinding a little bit harder and they're winning, right? And so what I'm doing at the SD Lab, what that all entails is, one, helping founders, co-founders launch their own sales motion, right? So you have a lot of cooks who can do good at cooking, but when they go to open a kitchen or a business, they kind of can't do that element. They just know how to make people feel good through their food, right? And so founders love their baby. They love their product. They love what they're building. But then when they try to turn that outbound engine on, it can just get lost. And they get a lot of bumps and bruises. They hire an SDR too early or bring in a huge sales director that, like, you don't need that yet, right? So the SD lab comes in, takes that learning curve down, and within about 14 weeks, we can get that motion going for them. That's pretty repeatable and scalable. And then doing playbook design, team coaching, like you said, helping SDRs, AEs. So the next element is helping Series A, Series B companies that already have a team of 7, maybe 15 SDRs, maybe 50, and they're looking to double down on that scalability, or they're just not getting the results they're seeing, right? Just open rates, cold calling reluctance, all that great stuff. Then we come in and optimize that. Look at people, what they're doing to enable, what their processes are like, what their tech stack is like. You know, how many tech tools can you look up now? And it's just overwhelming, right? In a big buying seat, right? If you're a buyer, okay, there's data providers out there, Zoom, all these great companies. Who do I actually pick? And what would be unique to my situation, not what the fan base says is great, right? Some people don't need Zoom info. They don't need the big players.
Yeah.
They can run lean with a little bit smaller tool. So we come in and help them all of that. And that's what I've been doing for 13 months. It's amazing, helping them get more meetings, figure out their process, and then working with the SDRs and AEs, because right now, right, messaging sucks. It's rough. They're stressed out. You guys are under a lot of pressure from sales leaders, because sales leaders and really starts from the top down, right? CEO, investors, boards, they're all looking for that 2019, 2020 energy before COVID, those time of summers where things were raging, people were spending money. And now everything is, how do we work smarter, not harder? How do we run more lean, do less with more? And you're seeing this kind of scale back approach and still trying to produce the same results. So it pressures people, right? Yeah. Let's say you have a team of 20 SDRs and you cut 15 of them and go down to 5. You still want those 5 to perform as the size of the 20. So now you're putting a ton of pressure on these guys without their say, right? Or even an awareness of, like, they come in one day and 15 of their friends are gone. Hey, now go double down and do more work. Oh,
right.
Cool. Sign me up. So just coaching them, helping them, enable them with, finding out what messaging works, open rates, reply rates, looking at their cold calls, social selling, content creation, how to do that. And it's just been fun, man. 13 months of doing what I love, helping clients. I would say the number one lesson of running my business is that your clients are everything. They really, really are. All the other stuff is noise. You can get lost, man. I do a lot. Like, you got to wear a lot of hats, and like things come up. You're like, oh, should I go do this? Should I go do that? And you'll spend 2 weeks building something that shouldn't have been built, right? Because it just wasn't necessary. You get right down that rabbit hole. And so, focusing on your clients is the number one thing. That's all that matters, is doing good work, delivering for them, finding new ways. And yeah, it's been good.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. I think there's a lot that people can learn from you today. And this is just my own curiosity. When did you start in tech sales?
So tech sales specifically, gosh, when probably started in like 2013. So in 2007, I started at Discover.
Over a decade. Almost a decade of SaaS experience.
Yeah. I did Discover Card. I did real estate, car sales. I then worked in for-profit education. So I was helping people through admissions, finance, getting people into college. Back when they were paying you commissions to enroll students. Not the greatest thing.
Isn't that wrong?
It was so bad, dude. They were for-profit, so a lot of layoffs. I went through a lot of layoffs, would come back in a different role. It was just a lot. Then I found GoDaddy in 2013, got into SEO. And so that's where I started there. It's kind of like getting into the tech and learning that the internet and what you see on it is actually just files, like file cabinets pulling. None of it actually exists. It's just coding and domains and all of that. Then I moved into Yelp. And then I found my way into sales development with a few companies. Worked at reputation.com, Milestone, and then fell into community. But yeah, I would say tech sales started in 2013, if you count that GoDaddy time of having to deal with that, products, services, all of that. So yeah, about a decade now.
I definitely think it counts. So this is something that my audience, sometimes they're younger, in their call them 20 to 24-year-olds who are just getting out of college, who this might be their first exposure to tech sales they want to get in. I'm curious, because I have my own take. This is like such a hotly debated thing online. It's
all right.
Remote versus in office. So from when you were in when you've been in office for a lot of these roles, I'm gonna guess, and now seeing these SDR teams who are fully remote. And do you coach any who are in-person offices?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So can you just shoot me straight of what you see? Is there a difference in productivity for remote workers, tech sales teams versus in-office? Because I'm curious.
You see what he's doing to me with his hot takes, man? This is a great conversation. And Morgan Ingram, good friend of ours, Kyle Coleman, VP over at Clary, we had this conversation at a recent in-person event.
Really?
Because we all come from that
so do I.
arena, right? I was in 2007. From day one, I've always been in office. I didn't go fully remote until October of 2019, and I got very lucky because COVID shortly happened in March.
That's right.
So I got a little leg up. I was in already remote, and then when everybody shut down to that, I had like a 6-month jump to get acclimated and situated. Right. They all just got thrown in it, and we're like, dude, I'm over here sitting. I got it now. So that didn't happen until 2019. So up from 2007 to 2019, I'd only ever worked in office. Had to go to a job every day, commute, the whole great stuff, work in the teams, and then went fully remote. And now most companies are that way. So me and Morgan and Kyle were talking about this because there will be people, a lot of you listening, that will never be in office. You start day one in sales in a remote world, and I don't like it.
I don't like it either.
I don't like it. I'll start there. My answer to it is I don't like it. However, in certain businesses, certain examples, certain situations, it opens up a world of opportunity.
It does.
You do get cool talent because you can go. Because listen, I have clients right now that are hiring SDRs, but they're niched to a location and it's not working. Right? Because they're stuck to their location.
Oh, it's like.
So, but I'm like, listen, you could fulfill those roles if you opened up. And they're like, oh, we don't want to. It has to be in office. So I am more team hybrid. I like, even when I had some office jobs, there was the ability I could work from home. So if I was sick or I had some doctor's appointments or I had a handyman come in for the day, I could just hang out at home. But I still had the office, to go to. So I am about hybrid. I think it'd be cool to still have an office visit, incorporate it in the budget if they work remote, that, hey, you get the opportunity to come out. Because as listeners, we all love a good work trip.
Who doesn't?
We all love to be able to okay, once a month, I got to come in office for 5 days. Cool. I'm good with that. And then the other 3 weeks of the month, I can go remote. But 1 week, we all come together and we just go hard for a full week, catch up on things, communicate, and then you're back to your respected places, right? Or you do hybrid and you work remote and at home, in office. But I just cannot believe that there will be reps going into sales that will never experience the buzz of the floor. And why I say it's so valuable from real life experience, when I switched from October to full remote, COVID happened, I fell into a beautiful little community called RevGenius with Jared, right?
Sure.
That popped off in March to July of 2020 when COVID was starting for everybody.
Okay.
When I got in there was an SDR group channel. People were communicating. He started building this great community. I was like the 2,000th member to partner with him and join in. Now they're at 35,000, almost 40,000.
Could you share a little bit about what RevGenius does?
RevGenius, for all of you listening, is a great place for you to go. It is a sales community on a tool called Slack, and it brings all revenue professionals together all in one place. It's like the water cooler of the sales world. So any up-and-coming salesperson trying to break into industry, try to land interviews, connect with SDRs and people in other roles, go to RevGenius. Go hang out, introduce yourself, mingle in the group. It's free. You just hang out. You can ask questions. You can mingle with people, network, and it opens up worlds of opportunity because now you're in it. You're in the matrix of the sales world and an idea, right? 40,000 professionals there. They can open opportunities. People land jobs out of it. They've got a job board, all this great stuff. So I join. We find this little niche with these SDRs, AEs, professionals that the whole world just went fully remote and people are lonely. 4 walls. You don't learn from peers. All this great stuff that I created Rev League, a little micro community in there where we grew to 2,000 people. And we had teams. We had the founders that had maybe a small, lean team of 2 SDRs. They couldn't really enable them. Come join that group, right? And now we had the whole world, India, Israel, Australia, the US, all mingling in the sales community with me where we do workshops. We would have weekly events, competitions. And it ate up the market because people were desperate to learn and be around people, because right now you're just in four walls. The SDR role where you just sit all day in your office and you're just dealing with rejection 70% of the time, or a dial tone or voicemails, and you're especially new, your first SDR job, like, where do you learn? Where do you see it play out in real time? Like from your peer, me and you make calls right now. I can maybe hear you say something on the phone and be like, yo, Will, the way you did that was wild. Loved how you did that delivery. I'm at my house. I only hear myself. I can only improve myself. And if you don't have that growth mindset to do that, 6 months in a row, you're just done. You're burnt out. You're exhausted. Nobody enabled you. Your managers aren't around. You're just slacking here and there. So I am all about in office. I feel bad that people will never experience it because, before I went remote, I had a team of 30 SDRs. We were all in the group in office right here in Arizona, man, right in Tempe. And, man, it was electric. It was lit up, man.
Electric.
It was just a vibe, and you could add a new hire, plug them right in that ecosystem, and within 2 weeks they were rocking and rolling with the team because they could hear everybody, they could chop things up. You could go talk to peers, go on a lunch together. Having a team lunch on a Friday afternoon with all the SDRs was always a good time. Everybody loved to hang out, and so now you've just got this remote world that it's a little sad, man. But I also think it opens up opportunity. I'm not anti-remote. I'm not. I think it's great. I just hope we can fulfill that gap for folks and leaders that are listening to this, or, your boss, give them this episode and just say, like, how do we bring that virtual electric sales floor to keep us all, rocking and rolling?
Right.
That's why you got like Nooks going off. Shout out to Nooks.
Yeah, shout out. I know Nooks, the founder.
Yeah, Rohan and them. And they've got a sales floor that allows people to dial in and all operate together and still have that commotion. Because you try to do it over Zoom, it's clunky. So you got this bullpen, you've got Salesfinity with Malavec, they're doing it. You've got a couple other tools popping out. But as a leader or a rep, I would look at this virtual sales floor and find a way to bring you all together in one spot, making calls. You can listen in, you can do gifts and all these great things to make that environment fun.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad that you brought that up because I'm not anti work from home. I love work from home. It allows me a lot of flexibility. It's awesome. Like, I love it, especially as an experienced sales rep. I don't think you need to be in office if you've been doing AA work for a long time. There's no reason for you to be in office because whether you're in office or you're remote, you still got a quota. And if you don't meet the quota, you're gone.
See ya.
So, but what I think Tom is saying that I also really agree. Like for you who are all graduating, to never experience in office is really a disadvantage, in my opinion. So I think if there is a company listening right now, this is just, if I own my own tech company, this is how I would do it. Obviously, I would try and get a hybrid situation in a city. Give people the flexibility of like, hey, Monday, Friday, you can work from home. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we're in office. However, if you don't have that situation, you're fully remote, try and invest the first 2 weeks of onboarding in person.
Oh, that's a great model, right? Is get them there. Like for at least like one company, a client of mine, they do 90 days. So what they do is you get 90 days, you're hired locally, or you're there 90 days. And then you can choose to go remote after that. So if you're moving, doing anything, but you have to do a minimum 90 days of it in office, then it opens up the world to remote.
It's the reason I say this is literally because I've been fully remote at my company, love my company, like love them to death, been there 3.5 years, but we're all remote. And for the first time last week, I got to meet my team in person.
No way.
Yeah, in Scottsdale.
Wow.
They all flew out.
Yeah.
And like I'm with one of the guys and we're joking around and he's like, let's open up the laptop and start dialing to Australia. And it's like 7 at night because Australia, it's like
8 a.m., like 10 a.m.
It's like
something.
9 or 10 in the morning. But like, and like we were dead serious. We're like, let's start making some dials. And like cold calling can be really intimidating and scary. But I think also at the same time, it's like if you have a coworker who's like, dude, I'm right here with you, bro. And like you're going to be like, all right, I'm going to call them. And then you got your coworkers and you're all like.
You can compete. You're talking about gamification, right? You're talking about like leveling one another up. People like to have some skin in the game.
Oh, yeah.
And if you can't self-motivate, you get eaten alive in sales a lot because you have to self-motivate so often. So when you're able to bring your peers in there to motivate you and be like, yo, Will, first person to get, 5 connects in the next hour, I'll buy lunch.
You're
eager to get involved. You're like, cool, I'll get involved, right? Where if you're just sitting at home, nobody gives too much about you, you're just kind of hanging out. How do you self-motivate yourself to get to 5 connects?
Right. And to also walk back on the work from home, I think if you're having people do 5 days a week in office, that's a little bit micromanagey, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Let's call that out, right?
Yeah, I think there's an inverse of that, you have to be here 5 days, you can't work from home.
Yeah.
You have micromanagement issues, in my opinion. That's just me. That's like where I see people like, oh, no, we don't allow work from home. You have to do 5 days a week.
The majority of the reason they do have the in-office is for that.
For the micromanagement.
They're poor leaders. They're poor management. Sorry. You could be mad at me. Hot take, whatever. But it's because it's you.
Right.
It's not the person. It's 2023. Work is work. You can do it from anywhere in the world. Everybody's doing work from all over the world.
Trust your team.
Trust your team and hire accordingly, because if you can't trust them, then why are they on the team? Then why even have them?
Right.
Trust them. Let them go from home. And honestly, most of the time, people genuinely like working from home and actually excel because the distractions are gone.
True.
The flybys are gone. Dude, the one thing that changed my life, the first time I went fully remote from office, no flybys. As a leader, as a rep, as a peer, people just coming up to your desk. Hey, Will, how you doing? And you're like in the middle of doing your stuff and they want to sit and chop it up for 10 minutes. And it's like, I can't do that. You watch your leaders go hide out in rooms. They
always hide out in rooms. Always. They're tired of the distractions.
They'd go lock up and you're like, yo, where's so-and-so? And they're like, oh, I don't know. He left like 2 hours ago. And you like search the whole building and be like, hey, like out through the window, to be like, hey, I need you. But, they would hide because those flybys that people just thinking they had the right to just come right up and start talking to you, So in the remote world, it also is great because people do excel. Some people like the comfortability of their home, saves them money. They're not buying lunch. There's a lot of perks.
Yeah, a lot of perks.
But I just think have a little squad, a little office. I would even put your money in better places. I think tech sales is putting their money in all the wrong areas a lot. And I would say even like rent out a co-work space for
sure.
If you start seeing, Arizona, for example, I've got a company out of San Francisco. I start seeing Arizona get hot and a couple recruits are coming through there. I might then just buy a co-work space that's kind of in between all 3 of the people I just hired.
Yeah, have them have a spot to just go in and chop it up with each other.
That's it.
Not even mandatory, but like, hey, if we could have you guys in office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to collaborate, that'd be great.
Yep.
Giving them the opportunity to have that physical space to collaborate.
You put expenses on anything else.
Not forcing them.
Yeah, not forcing. You just give it as an option.
Yeah.
Or you have it as a company for when you come to town. Then you guys can get together and be like, hey, I'm going to come in for 3 days just to say hi. Let's go hit the co-work space.
Yeah.
Right? So you buy a co-work space in these little hot spots where you're starting to see a couple recruits come out of. Now they have that experience. They can come together. You can fly into town, stop by there. And then, they can go respectfully and go remote, if they need to and not be around.
Yeah. So this brings me to like another quick thing is in the remote world, which is most of tech sales right now, there's some people doing full in office, but most are hybrid, most are remote. How important is the phone when it feels like, at least to me, a lot of reps are hiding behind email and they're not picking up the phone? For the teams that you coach, for the teams that you coach, are the ones who are most successful hitting the phones harder, or is it actually they don't really do it that much? It's mostly emails. Like, how important is the phone to the successful teams that you coach?
He's coming at me with hot takes again.
Yeah, as always.
Man. I like how you said behind, right? Hide behind, because reality is that what you all are doing, right? Is you're reluctant to pick up a phone, have a live conversation. So you're hiding behind email. You're doing LinkedIn social selling. They're very too hot kind of approaches. But I do want to bring in a caveat too, is that that's very specific to software tech sales, those kind of methodologies, because the clients that are outside that world, LinkedIn is really irrelevant for them. Their prospects aren't really there. Those tactics, strategies that everybody's posting about don't do much for them. The clients that I'm seeing win absolutely are doing a multi-channel approach.
Okay.
You know, they've got the cold calls in there, they've got the phone, they've got the email, the LinkedIn, or whatever social they're trying to do, and then they've got cold calling. I still think the number one fastest way to get information, intel, referrals, opportunities, great conversations all come from picking up the damn phone. Pick it up, have a call. I've been doing this since 2007. Even as a founder today, I just posted today, I was doing a session. I was out there cold calling. Like, it works. It's so much faster to get real-time feedback, get intel, determine if this person even works there. I went through a list today and like 5-10 people were not even at the company anymore, right?
Yeah.
Some data issues. What if I just hid behind email all that time?
True.
How much time and effort am I doing, for no return, right? And I think they're not just opening the email, because not everybody also has filters set up or closes out an email. You'll just keep emailing it and you'll never know.
Right.
You make one phone call and they're like, oh, dude, no, we shut them off, or they haven't worked here in 2 years. And you're like, oh, well, turn off the email, make something happen. But I think cold calling is still very, very relevant. I think it's evolving. I think it's not about a spam approach. I'm a big advocate for warm calling, where, you show the prospect, you give a crap, you're doing research, you're really enriching the calls that you're doing, and they're still cold. Don't get me wrong, guys. Don't come for me. They're still cold. They never heard from you, but your approach is warmer, right? You're coming into it like, hey, Will, let me provoke some thought with you. Let me have a conversation with you and show you that I know your world, and I also know you a little bit, right? That's a lot more enriched. And so my clients are definitely looking at me to help level up their cold calling. That's what a majority of what my business is around, is helping people get that cold calling culture, talk to them about script or no script. We could dive into that another day, right? How that works. But yeah, cold calling is still a great source for you to get on the phones, but people are reluctant. They're scared. They're not enabled. And why not just sit on, shooting out emails or just talking behind a keyboard? And the reason for that, and I'll bring this up too, is that we're going through an evolution of buyers and sellers and a new whole class of chain of command coming in, with new generations coming, right?
Uh-huh.
We have the young people coming in, 21-year-olds coming out. Everybody's moving. And why I see that reluctance and why a lot of you won't do it.
They don't like the phone.
They don't like the phone because we don't live in that world, right? Like,
my sister and them, they're like 20, 21.
Yeah.
They never pick up the phone.
They never pick up the phone. Ever. They want to text.
They love texting.
Texting, sliding into DMs. I have conversations with my sisters in Instagram DMs, and I'm like, text me. Like, it's just like, I don't understand. But it's all about that kind of communication. And so we have to understand that as buyers. And that's why I say cold calling is evolving. I understand it. I'm not, I get it. And even in some clients' concepts, there actually isn't a need for cold calling. In some of them, there are.
Okay.
To where it's like, hey, you don't really need to worry about that with what you've got going on right now. But it's because these buyers and sellers that are coming in, they didn't have to. I grew up having to call the neighborhood friend and see if Will was home to go play outside.
Yeah.
Or just walk down the street and knock cold on the door and say, hey, can Will come out? And they're like, oh, Will already took off. He's down in the neighborhood. And you just had to go search for them. Go find him. And in order to talk to anybody outside of seeing them in person, the only way to do that was through the phone.
Right.
After school, that was it. You didn't see your friends till the next day, and it was hyped. It was energy. You were like, yo, seeing that's why a lot of people went to school. They didn't like school. They just liked seeing their friends.
For sure.
Because that's the only time you could. Otherwise, you had to pick up the phone, talk to them. We were all growing up that way. Where nowadays, that phone is not their friend. People don't do it. However, I still think it is very effective when it comes to buying decisions from a B2B business standpoint to get deals done. I've never seen somebody close a deal simply off of just emailing.
Okay.
Right? You've had to pick up the phone at some point. I couldn't close you on a whole business deal and never talk to you on the phone. Just not going to happen unless you're doing product-led growth and doing sales that way. But cold calling is very vital. It's the fastest way to get intel, referrals, opportunities, and it's just the fact that folks aren't enabled to do it. They lack the confidence to do it, and two, it's just not their culture. It's not their grown up in. So you have to get them to understand how to embrace the phone and be okay with calling people.
Okay. Everything you said, I agree with. I've been getting the question a lot recently. What do you think about cold texting? Because this new generation, they love to text so much. And my audience says, hey, what do you think about me texting my prospects? And a line I've heard that's been used is texting the prospect with this line.
Okay. Hey,
this is X, Y, and Z from this company. I was going to call you, but I figured a text might be easier. I was reaching out because, and you do your pitch via text. What are your thoughts on that? Have you seen that done? Have you seen it work?
So I've done texting my whole career, even but I only did it warm. I only
do warm texting too.
Yeah, I only did warm. I never texted anybody as my first touch or didn't even go that channel. But if I reached out 5-6 times, or I did have a conversation with you and we were going to agree to a meeting and then I couldn't get you on email, I'd shoot you a text. Hey, Will, I'm assuming that my emails got lost, in the box. I just want to make sure, are you good for 4 o'clock on Thursday, right? And I get a text back.
For sure.
When I was at Yelp working in B2C texting is game changer. If you're in B2C, yes, right? Like my friends that did the liquor store, I had a client that did liquor stores. They would go and reach out to liquor stores for products, and text messaging was their number one source because the owners are busy all day, running all day. So they're not going to check their email as frequently. So texting was the way to go. They'd get meetings. They'd get people to confirm with them. B2B in enterprise, little bit touchy. You can frustrate some VPs, CEOs. They're like, whoa, dude. Just like when you cold call, how'd you get my number?
Dude, but
they get so offended.
This is where I'm torn on the cold texting, because it's people get offended when you cold call.
Yeah.
Really offended.
Where'd you get my number? Why are you calling me on my mobile phone?
I had someone email me and said, stop harassing my team. You're making the team feel uncomfortable, and word for word said, scared to tell you no. So I'm here to tell you, please don't ever call our company again. And this is the craziest part. I called 7 people in the company. I went 1, 2, 3. I just went down the list.
Sure.
One time.
That's it.
And it triggered them that much that they compelled the CEO to send me that type of email. And so I'm like, is the cold texting as triggering as cold call?
It is. It's as intrusive for folks, even though it is their buyer language in their everyday life. I mean, they're doing it with family and friends. It's not that bad. But I would say, and I'm not about ageism or any of things like that, but I do think kind of vet out your audience of who you're talking to. Okay. If they're under 35, I'd probably shoot a text.
Okay.
I think it'd be okay.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be too bad. But if I'm going over 35, they're going to yell at me.
I think likely. For sure. They're
going to be like, yo, dude, don't do that. Because again, it goes back to that culture. 35 and up, they were raised in a culture that texting wasn't even, my wife's 38 years old, and through high school, she didn't have a cell phone or texting. They had pagers.
Yeah.
And she's 38. That's young to me. But that's old to somebody that was born in 2010. They're like, what?
Right.
But it's not their culture. So getting a text is hey, dude, that's for family and friends. What are you doing? I'll give you a hot take. In 2021, I was cold FaceTiming people.
Dude. Are you joking? You're serious?
Serious. Jed Blunt, a few of us, I was at a company building out an SDR team. I was the director. We were in the trenches.
Sorry.
Video prospecting was becoming a hot commodity. That was starting, right? Yeah. More of conversation, cold calling, all that. I had my team. And as I was dialing on my phone, doing some stuff, I was like, why not try cold FaceTiming? Because it's taking video, which is a Zoom meeting that I'm trying to get the prospect on anyway, or I'm going to send them a prospecting video, plus me cold calling. Why not combine them into FaceTime and just make that one call? So I did 50 to 75 FaceTimes. I booked 10, 15 meetings. And then the rest of them told me to go literally what are you doing? And then some of them never answered. The only caveat is when they did answer, I had to own my stuff. They call they'd answer and then be like, whoa, what? Just because you did this, give me your best shot and tell me why you're calling me. And that's how I would get them. And then some would be think it was really cool. They're like, oh, wow, hi. And I'm like, hey, just trying something innovative here, trying to be creative, wanted to put a face to a name. And I would book the meeting and they'd be like, yeah, I'll give it to you just for the fact that you did this. And and then you delivered.
So the cold FaceTime has a 20% success rate. That's pretty good.
It was solid, man. But at the same time, with that success came, just like in cold calling, a lot of rejection, a lot of people saying it was intrusive. That's family and friends. What are you doing? How dare you?
Right.
And be burned off. But then there was that caveat where they were super stoked with it. And
that's
we're like,
for family and friends.
Yeah, that's for your grandma. That's for, your sisters and your family. My sisters love FaceTiming. Like they don't take a regular call.
Yeah,
they don't do
loves
a call.
FaceTime.
FaceTime. My sister
Loves
Abby, that's
FaceTime.
all she does. Every time she calls, it's a FaceTime. And I'm like, can you not? I don't want to, I'm good, man. I'm busy.
Right.
And now, who just rolled it out? They just had on Instagram, they now rolled out hologram. It's a box you buy. Just like the cameras here, you set it up and it's a square box, and then the person has it set up on their side, and I put it in front of me, and then you would be sitting there with the box view, this hologram box, and when I step into the camera, a hologram will appear in the box. And then you're sitting there having a video call with me, but I'm standing in the box through a hologram. So they just debuted it. I saw it on Instagram. Howie Mandel did it. And then a woman who was talking to her military husband, she was pregnant, and she sat in the box and he could see her full body, but she was in, a different state. So hologram is coming in, which I said was going to happen. I think in 10, 15 years, you're going to make a cold call straight to the living room of somebody. You understand right there, and that's going to be the way you take phone calls.
Hi.
Yeah. Hey, Will P here. How you doing?
And you can't turn me off. I'm going to have a 30-second pitch whether you like it or not.
Right? I'm in the office.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I did the cold FaceTime, and it was a thing. And the reality is the way I looked at it is, and the way I look at cold calling is, it's a choice. It's not intrusive. At the end of the day, there is a little red option and a green option.
Decline the call.
Decline it and move on. I think people get too worked up over it. The people that told me off, I was fine with, handled it with grace, had that conversation. But I would be pissed off, and I would understand the hesitation to these attempts if those things just auto-answered. If you called somebody and it just auto-answered.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, intrusive as heck. Same with FaceTime. If you didn't have the option to void that out, and if somebody called FaceTime, it just picked up, okay. Whoa, dude, don't do that.
Right.
But you have an option to just move about your day. You see a FaceTime from an unknown number, just move on, decline it, no big deal. And I had those, nothing changed. And then if they did answer, right, you have that choice. That's why I'm not a big fan of permission-based openers and cold calls. Another hot topic, right?
Don't do that.
Don't call and say, hey, Will, it's Tom. Did you have a minute? Or is now a good time? I'm not about that.
I don't, actually. Yeah.
Every cold caller I talked to that's used an actual permission-based opener for real has told me 60, 70% of the time the person goes, it's a bad time, and you lose the call. So I don't see why, if that's the number one outcome and start there, why would you even ask it?
Your go-to opener, go.
Hey, Will, Tom with SC Lab, how have you been? And I drop it with a tone of familiarity. I say, how have you been? Not how are you?
I like that.
And then as soon as you say, hey, man, I'm really good. How are you? I'm like, I'm great, Will. The reason for my call is... boom, boom, boom. And then I end with an open-ended question, and I'll put the call on you. Will, I saw your LinkedIn post about your new podcast, man. I thought it was going really well. I was curious, a couple podcasters I'm talking to, is post-production is overwhelming. How are you currently tackling it with you and the team? You're now going to talk to me for 5 minutes, a few minutes. Oh, well, we're doing this. We're doing that. Oh, I actually don't have any post-production team. Great. That's why I called. This is what we do. This is how it ties in. Now, talk to me a little bit about, out of post-production, what's the biggest problem? Is it the flashiness to add to it? Is it just cutting up the pieces? What is the big, problem? Oh, it's this. Now we're just conversating. So I'm not a permission-based opener guy. Don't believe in them. I think just get to it. Come with confidence. State, who you are, where you're calling from, and the reason for my call is. Because that's all people care about when they answer the phone. Who are you? Where are you from? And why in the heck do I care? And why are you calling me? Mm-hmm. What made you think? Because a lot of SDRs are just calling blindly on a list. And if somebody answers, they're just going to go right into their value prop and their pitch. You can't do that. Try to get into the buyer persona world and say, Will, great question why I'm calling you. You're a director of sales or you're an AE over at this company. I'm talking with other AEs pretty regularly every week. And what they're working on right now is putting notes in their CRM. We've known for 10 years that's been a pain. Do you and your team do anything differently, or how do you log your notes right now? Now you're talking to me, right? So just show that you care, show why you called, that there's actual purpose to this person. Will, I'm calling you because you're an AE. This is a problem you might have, or I saw this post, this trigger. I'm really big into trigger prospecting, right? Calling with purpose. Do you know why you called this person? If you don't have that answer, don't even pick up the phone. Don't do it.
Don't do it. And you got to have confidence in what you're selling. I think that's the big thing, right? Is like actually believe the product that you're selling can help the person you're calling.
Yeah.
That's half the battle. I like the kind of the tone you did with the how have you been?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like a little familiarity. I haven't tried that. I am going to try it because I'm always looking for new ways.
Yeah.
Mine's a little bit more like rushing in as a bull where I'm
Give me your pitch.
basically saying like, well, sometimes my data's a little shaky, but if I know your name, I won't say like Tom. Like,
Okay.
But like if I've never called you, I'll be like Tom, and you'll be like, yeah. And I'll be like, hey Tom, I know I'm totally calling out of the blue here. I was reaching out because I saw you guys were using XYZ affiliate platform and was curious how that's going. And then they're kind of like really thrown off, like it's going well. Like, who are you? And I'm like, okay, well, I'm Will with Grin. I was reaching out because I was not really like, basically I'll be like, hey, I'm Will with Grin. I'm reaching out because we're working with brands in your space, CMOs just like you, helping them actually see other options in the space. Have you heard the name Grin tossed around? I have, but we're not interested. And then I kind of go forward and say, okay, well, just to let you know, like from the influencers I see on your website and from on your Instagram and TikTok, it feels like you're missing out on some of the actual content capturing. I know you're on this platform for revenue attribution, but have you thought about what you want to do with the influencers' content? Like, how do you prioritize influencer content? And kind of just start to like spitball into a conversation. But my opener is, hey, this is Will. I know I'm calling the blue here. How is this going? Or how has your experience been with this? Just trying to get them to talk.
Yeah. I think it's a good opener. My only advice would be, in that it's a lot about you and what you're coming in immediately with that value prop kind of conversation that, you almost come from how do I make it about them of, hey, Will, it's Tom with Grin. I've been talking with some other accounting or VPs of marketing like you. How are you currently handling your influencer program and where are you doing with this specific thing?
Right. I could improve. This is why I have these guests.
And then they're like a little bit more, it's about them, right? And you're coming into their world because you right now, more than anything, to break through the noise, you have to push strategic, thought-provoking things to these people. Make them realize that they're working on, this analogy I have is they're working on letter B, but their competitors and everyone else in the space is working on letter Y. Why are you on B and not on Y? They're like, oh, I didn't know I needed to be on Y. We're back here. Why is that? Talk to me through that.
Yeah. So after this, I think I'm going to change around my cold call opener because I'm going to try the how have you been and just see how it goes.
It's all about that tone, man, of just like that casual, because it's how you call your friends. If I called you right now, I'm like, hey, Will, and you answer, I'm like, Will, what's up? How have you been, man?
Yeah, right? How are you?
How are you? Like that tonality, so they just like, for a split second are like, oh, have I talked to this person before? Oh, yeah. Who is this? And they're like, man, I'm doing really, and it just also picks up their energy a little bit. Most of the time I'm actually doing really great. What's going on?
What's up?
Or, oh, actually I'm like in the middle of a heated day. What's going on? Oh, is this a bad time for you? I totally get it. I can kind of hear in the back noise. Do you want me to give you a call? And then I'll go into like making sure that they have time, but they're always really easy.
I used to do, and I still do it. I'll say, and this is kind of maybe a challenge to me that like I need to stop doing this is like, I'll say, hey, this is what, I'll say, hey, what's going on? Am I calling it the absolute worst time right now? And then sometimes I'll say like, yes, like it is. Obviously, Chris Voss Psychology says they want to tell you no. So they tell you no, and then they say, what's up? And you're able to pitch what you're trying to call with. But I think the how have you been could be a really welcome change to what I've been doing.
Yeah, I would test it. A lot of people do really well with it. It feels good. It also buys you like 30 seconds because a lot of times you might be on a dialer, you might be doing stuff, the call comes out of the blue because a lot of times SDRs aren't expecting somebody to pick up.
No.
So it stuns you, right? You're like, hold on. Hey, Will, how's it going?
It's kind of a scary moment,
So when you can just start off with, oh, hey, Will, Tom Slocum with the SD Lab. How have you been, man? Now I have a minute while that screen comes up. I can pull up their LinkedIn real quick, get going.
Chill out
for a second and bring the nerves down. And they're like, oh, I'm doing really good, man. Or, hey, who was that? Who is that again? Oh, it's Tom with the SD lab. Reason for my call is, or they'll be like, oh, I'm doing really well. How are you? Hey, can't complain on this Friday afternoon. It's 74 degrees. We're having a good time.
Yeah.
You got any big plans for the day? Nah, I'm hanging out. Cool. Well, I'm going to keep it super brief with you. I hope you have a great weekend. But why I have you, I was calling because of XYZ. How are you handling that right now? Now we're just conversating. Now we're just having a vibe.
Yeah. What Tom's doing is making the call about them.
Yeah.
Not about him. And obviously you transition into what you're calling about because you want to make the best use of their time.
Talk about the problem, the goal, the challenge. Nobody cares about your value prop. Nobody cares what you can do. It's just get them to think about this problem and find out if it's even a priority or a concern for them. And what I like to do is seek to understand and then be understood. Because when in your approach, right, your opener, you go right into that value prop and kind of drop into that, they're going to get back to you and say, one, not my department. Two, don't care. They like it. It just opens up too much and you don't know. You drop that value prop and then they can kind of come back with all the objections to shut down that value prop, right? So when you come from a seek to understand and kind of catch up to where they are, then you can hear, right? Will would come back to me and be like, actually, yeah, we just, I was calling with a client today about some services. And the person was like, shockingly enough, Tom, because I said, well, where are you at with that right now? Is that something on your radar? And he was like, actually, we just signed up 3 months ago or just last month and we start December 1st on the service. Now I didn't have to waste my breath and go through a whole value prop or anything. I was like, that's great news, man. So you start December. What kind of expectations do you have for it? Oh, this is what we're planning to get out of it. Cool. How about I follow up in about 2-3 months and we see how that performance goes and I might have a chance to earn your business. And he was like, I'd love that. And that was a conversation versus, hey, Will, Tom, blah, 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 value prop, da-da-da-da-da. Hey, man, I'm all set. I already got a vendor there. Thanks so much. And now the call's over. And I just wasted all that breath. When now I can seek to understand where they're at right now. What have you done to tackle this problem? What didn't you like when you tackled that problem? Or you have, what's that been like? Right. Did it work out? Okay, when do you renew with them? Is that coming up? Do I have a shot? And once you kind of collect all of that with them, talking about that pain and that challenge, now I can cater my value prop to come in later. Mm-hmm. Will, like I said, I want to keep this very brief. Been great chopping it up with you, man. Based on what you said here that, you've been 2 months in, they're not doing this, and you really want to get here, that's why I called. What we do at SD Lab is we actually target those 3 things because it is a common pain for a lot of folks. What I'd love to do is grab 30 minutes with you and we can tackle those 3 things. And I just want to give you an evaluation of what that looks like compared to the performance you're having now. Does that sound fair? And I always end on, does that sound fair? Or just sound fair. It's always a good one to, always a good one. Like, hey, Will, does that sound fair? Nobody says no because it sounds fair. Like, that's rude. Does that sound fair? No. Oh, it doesn't? Like, dude, tell me where I like.
If you say, no, it doesn't sound fair, then you're implying that the person is unfair.
Yeah. So it's an automatic kind of like, yeah, that's fine. Let's do that. And that's how I book meetings. It's just be like, yeah, like, sure. Yeah, I would love to tackle those things and kind of evaluate it. And yeah, that sounds fair. Why not? And I tell them, worst case, you spent 30 minutes with me and you learned something to change what you're doing today. Best case, we become partners and get to work on this problem and get you to where you want to go. Sound fair? They're like, yeah, why not? 30 minutes, I'm either going to get value from you regardless. Regardless, I'm getting value from you because either I'm going to learn something and I'm going to take away something I could be doing differently with a little hack or 2 that I'm going to take from that call, or better, I'm going to actually solve my problem and take action and find a solution.
And as I have learned something here today, this is great. Like, this is, the Sell the Test podcast, the first episode, like, you guys follow me for tactical advice, but I've been in the AE world for a while. So demoing, closing clients, I've been on the closer role for a while. Yeah. And so I think sometimes I do get out of touch with some of the new tactics for cold calls because I'm not making the volume that I used to make when I was a BDR, $150, $200 a week. Now I'm more so $50.
50, 75.
If I'm just being transparent, I'm about $50 a week as an AE, and I lose touch of a lot of the new tactics. Like, I learned a lot here from this, and like everyone who's listening, this is an opportunity for you to take what Tom said and to apply it in A/B test. We're not saying it's the silver bullet.
No, every opener, every approach has to. I don't teach scripts. I don't teach that stuff. You don't need to be in a box. These are guides. I just want to provoke you to look at something different with a different lens. Bring your own energy, your own style. And the real caveat is just put everything on your prospect. Like, make it about them. Shine a light into their world. Don't worry about you. Don't worry about your goals, your outcomes. Just have conversations with people and make them feel good that, one, they answered your call, make it worth it for everybody involved. And two, they show up for a call. Dude, that's a big win.
It is.
You getting 30 minutes with somebody because 5 other people just called before you and you got the one to be like, yeah, you know? So when they show up and take that 30 minutes, appreciate it and let them feel that appreciation.
Big time. Yeah, it's a big deal, but also your time's important too. So it's like you also have to have that swagger of like, hey, thank you for your time, but also I'm not going to keep saying thank you for your time, right? It's there's a fine balance, and we can get into that with a different episode, but like I think to wrap, like in summary, it sounds like there's a lot of changes happening in the SDR world right now. We talked about the remote versus in office. We kind of gave our take on that. As far as cold calls go, it's still very important to cold call your prospects. It's really never going to go away, but don't be afraid to shoot a cold text every once in a while to test it out, and try that opener. Hey, it's for this example, hey, it's Will from Grin. How have you been? Or like,
oh, that's so good.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah, it's just a little bit like you got to kind of put a smile on of like, hey, Will, it's Tom over at the SD Lab. How have you been?
Right.
It just feels good. You got to get that energy right off the gate because, they don't – if you look at it with doom and gloom in your call session, you go into it, you're like, oh, man, I got to do this. That energy is going to convey hardcore, and nobody wants to talk to that. So come into it locked in, loaded, and like, hey, Will, how have you been, man? What's been going on? Oh, things are great. Awesome. Hey, I'll keep this super brief. The reason for my call is, and you just carry that tonality with them so they feel like they want to talk to you. Doesn't even matter what I'm saying. They're just having a good time hearing that tonality through the call.
That's right. It's just having that swagger, that confidence. Yeah. And if there's one thing I've helped my prospects do is feel like a friend. Yeah. Like at any time I close a deal, like they're like, feel confident enough to call me, to text me, to tell me personal information about the competitors. And to get a prospect to that level of comfortability, it's making it about them, not myself.
That's it.
Detaching from the outcome. So in summary, I am going to ask my guests 2 closing questions before we wrap the episode.
He told me to expect these. I have no idea, y'all. I have not been prepped. I have no idea what's about to come out of his mouth.
The first one, personal. Who do you look up to the most in your life?
What a question. Who do I look up to most? It's such a tough question, man. A lot for me comes from the sports world. I have that drive. I'm a type A. I really follow the greats, like, what Tom Brady did over his career, what LeBron does. Like, they cut through noise. They deal with a lot, but they still get stuff done. Kobe Bryant, right? The Mamba mentality of those guys and what they did in their careers, how they fought through things, how they're resilient, their work ethics. Like LeBron, I adore to be able to put $1 million a month into his body to drive 21 years now. Like Tom Brady came to the Bucks, my team, delivered another championship. And that's what I model after, because your body, your mind, your soul are so important to keep intact. And then, be, a savage, right? Like the world is our oyster. The world is our opportunity. We get to write our own stories. There really is no guide to how things should be on your journey and not be. They're yours to experience, right? So big believer in God, right? The Bible is your basic instructions, but there is no rule to a lot of stuff, right? Beyond the typical laws, but enjoy it, man. And so those are people I look up to. Business world, Morgan Ingram, Scott Leese, others in the space that just show up for people, and they're so brilliant. They're visionaries. They think like a year ahead of time, which is so crazy to me. But yeah, those type of people is who I'm diving into and aspiring. And then my grandfather, from a personal level, He passed away in 2020, but the way he lived his life, being a simple man, loved everyone, always showed up with a smile, never heard him complain, not one bit. And he was just a good dude that just like allowed me to kind of want to model that and be like that.
Thanks. That's a great answer. I love that. I think you could take a lot from the sports world and sometimes sales and sports. You can find a lot of analogies between the two. Mm-hmm. And the second question, and this is the last one. This is more so just something that you think would be the biggest mistake you see SDRs or AEs making today.
They're falling too in love with the tech.
Okay.
And all the noise. They're getting themselves removed from the basis of sales, which is relationships. Focusing on just putting in the hard work and having the conversations, getting people to talk to them. Their mistakes are they're getting overwhelmed with all the tech, all the tools, and they're allowing that to do their jobs for them versus just getting to the root of just making connections with people and trying to help people with their solutions and services and their messaging and their cold calling. And they're not, the mistake is not putting work in the shadows, right? You talk to any top performer, you talk to anybody that has found success in the world of sales. I'm sure, Will, you've done it without anybody noticing. It's the stuff we do after hours. Mm-hmm. It's the things that we do when people aren't watching. It's the people doing the number 2 job to the number 1 without being asked to or looking for compensation for it or waiting to get compensated to then do that role. So I think SDRs have to realize that you got 8 hours a day, 6 hours a day to be prospecting with your lunch, your breaks. Master your craft and fall in love with it and do some things after hours, like do some research, vet out your data, look at some stuff, right? Because those little actions help you become 1% better every day. Like you have a database of 3,000 people. Within 2 months, that's a perfectly clean list and you're locked and loaded. So every time you dump it in for 6 hours, you're only having conversations. You're having a targeted list. It's not a forever problem. It's just a quick moment of, let me organize this. Let me get in and do the deep work, study things, go in and do courses, learn. Those are the mistakes I think people are doing is they're just getting into the job. They're just doing what they need to do. And I think people need to take enjoyment back in what they're doing, master the craft, and do that stuff after shadows or in the shadows, because those make all the difference in the battle of sales.
That is great advice. Tom, thank you so much for being my first guest on the Sell That SaaS podcast. For all of you listening at home, just thank you for tuning in. And we got a lot of more episodes coming. This has been a highly requested feature of mine is doing a podcast. So I'm here and we're doing it live. Tom Slocum,
come be a guest. The experience, the hosting, man. This is going to be a great series. Y'all are in for some cool packed episodes, man. I'm excited.
Thank you. Yeah, you can find me on all sales channels. Sell That SaaS. So Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You can connect to me on LinkedIn. Will Padilla. Tom, where can people find you?
LinkedIn, my bread and butter. DM me there. Talk to me there. Come hang out. I'm big in the LinkedIn community. And then I'm on all the other socials, right? I got a TikTok. I'm not as cool as Will. Will's got a great TikTok and Instagram, and but I am on Instagram, Twitter. I love Twitter. I hang out over there. TikTok, but LinkedIn is where you can find me more often than not.
Okay, connect with Tom on LinkedIn, and you guys can stay in touch. And I'm sure that you guys can message him, or if you're a client, a company watching, and you're looking for someone to help reshape your SDR AE team, you got the guy right here. Thank you for listening. Take care.